James is a former farmer. He now recognizes the devastating impact of domesticated animals on the planet. This plague has led to massive deforestation, James says, destroying natural ecosystems to grow feed for animals, bred for slaughter, all to satisfy a destructive appetite. The consequences are far-reaching: famine, pestilence, desertification, and wars. It drives him to embrace veganism as a path toward healing the earth and ending the cycle of harm. Wow, do I ever relate to this next guest, James Wilson. Let's welcome him to the online presentation. Thank you, James.
Now we hear you much better. Perfect.
Huh. You wouldn't know how much effort I've gone to get my picture up on the screen. Thank you very much.
We're happy to have you.
Right, off we go.
By the way, you're in New Zealand, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent.
Long way from you.
Yeah. We're looking forward to hearing your story.
Thank you very much. Right. Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to describe my perspective on veganism and my observations of what is happening in New Zealand. It may sound that I am disappointed with New Zealand's situation, but that's not the case. I treasure the fact that my family and I live here. I do, however, believe that our small country is a sad microcosm of what is happening around the world. Last year in New Zealand, 18 million fat lambs were slaughtered for meat. This is astounding that at the same time, 125,000 children, about 2.5% of the population of 5 million, were recorded as being underfed. Shockingly, every one of the lambs goes to their slaughter in prime condition, whilst our children go to school hungry. Lambs grow on milk from their mothers, and both mothers and lambs thrive on succulent plant pastures. There is no question that lambs are ruminants, and humans are not, but the advantage humans have over all other species is that we modify our food with cooking, making all vegetation equally edible and beneficial. While our children are often raised on highly processed, commercially modified foods, our lambs grow healthily on plants. Similarly, cows produce unnatural volumes of milk, all from eating vegetation. To continue producing milk each year, they must have a calf every year, generally forced on them through artificial insemination. All the 2 million male calves slaughtered are slaughtered at around 8 days of age. The interesting thing is, it's much of that meat is sold as turkey meat. Around 900 years ago, New Zealand was first colonized by Polynesian people who discovered a pristine country in which they learned to thrive. The population was small, but de-wilding through human interference had started. They brought rats, dogs, and fire, and inevitably initiated changes in the environment. Around 200 years ago, Europeans, my ancestors amongst them, arrived, and in short order caused much greater de-wilding, bringing in millions of alien plants, terrestrial and aquatic animals, whilst clearing 1/3 of forest land and draining 90% of our wetlands, just for the raising of livestock and ultimately many other monocultural activities. Today, more than 75% of our native plants, birds, bats, and fish species are threatened with extinction or are at risk of becoming threatened. I grew up believing that farming was a patriotic activity, as we were feeding Britain in their hour of need, and later we took pride in the funds in producing wool to keep soldiers in Korea warm. Truth is that we only fed and warmed those who could afford to pay for products produced at the other side of the world and where no environmental costs were ever counted. The New Zealand population, eating large volumes of animal products, tragically suffers from very high incidences of, by world standards, cancer, bone frailty, obesity, heart disease, and many more non-communicative diseases. There are those who express concern about the huge increase in human population. However, the much greater increase in the numbers of farmed livestock is the real worry. Livestock are raised purportedly to feed the human population, while the damage to human health, the destruction of the environment, and the cruelty meted out to the farmed animals are all ignored. My rough estimates of New Zealand's terrestrial biomass, calculated in terms of human body weights, includes humans 5 million, dairy and beef cattle 59 million, sheep 27 million, herded poultry 1.2 million. This adds up to a total equivalent of more than 92 million people now being imposed on a country where 900 years ago had no humans, and prior to that, a 50 million year history of being in ecological balance. Our human population makes up only 4% of the country's introduced biomass, but we are still responsible for the other 96%, which decamp on cleared and drained forests and wetlands, creating soil degradation, fresh water despoilment, and the emission of huge amounts of CO2 and methane, causing a monumental de-wilding on the original flora and fauna. The surrounding seawater has also suffered significant de-wilding through the annual removal of sentient fish with the equivalent weight of 7 million people. What was once a balanced environment is now de-wilded through changes in fish populations and pollution from livestock effluent, runoff of degraded soil, and the human-generated flotsam and jetsam. The very worst aspect of the burgeoning biomass of livestock is the cultural and political credibility given to these industries in the face of the known damage being done to human health, the environment, and the contribution to climate change. It seems New Zealand seems to cling to the concept that meat and milk production are essential for the country's economical survival, and to the idea that we are feeding the world, a fatuous thought. Farmers in New Zealand are contributing nothing to the desperate need for a severe reduction of global warming. Laws pertaining to reductions of greenhouse gases are weak or non-existent. Many forces are now coming together to eliminate the demand for meat, fish, and milk. And with good fortune, our forests, our health, and our children's well-being will return. It is heartening that livestock numbers in many countries appear to have peaked. One hopes that any drop in livestock production will provide opportunities for rewilding. I know that this is an ambitious dream, but I'm impatient to see it come about. I read with optimism the magazine The Economist, reporting on so many exciting non-animal food developments. A recent headline read, "Plant-based alternatives now cheaper than animal products across several categories in Germany." And that surely shows us where we might be heading. Nowadays, many of us are working to rewild much of the countryside but we are hampered due to the severe delineation of boundaries introduced by European colonists and their surveyors. To rewild New Zealand's original wetland and forest will mean that private ownership will have to be forfeited for the good of the endeavour, a monumental task. I regard myself as being incredibly privileged. I grew up living on living a wonderful life on our family farm. In turn, my wife Barbie and I raised our children on the same farm, giving them a life of outdoor freedom. In the 1970s, the age-old adherence to maintaining mixed pastures of grasses and legumes was disassembled by the intrusion of nitrogenous fertilizers. I disagreed with this retrograde step and so dabbled in regenerative and organic farming, both of which led to improved animal health. But I ultimately learned they did nothing for reductions in carbon or methane emissions. On the farm, I could express much of my creative nature and develop many inventive farming systems, amongst them new farming methods, animal ID systems, and associated databases. While I was promoting products and systems, Barbie took over running the farm. In those days, even this was a revolutionary adaptation. However, a visit to the farm by Prince Charles, now King Charles, gave her great mana. It was a wonderful life until the blinkers were removed. For 68 years of my life, I ate and promulgated the consumption of animal foods. We raised our children to eat like our parents and theirs before had done. Thanks to Cordell Esselstyn and Colin Campbell and a great many others, I came to learn the folly of eating meat and milk and the joy of living cheaply and healthily on plant-based foods. This joy is severely tempered by the painfully slow uptake of a plant-based whole foods lifestyle by the general population. I am heartened by the many prophets who are bravely predicting an imminent change in our eating habits, but I find the huge amount of old money being spent to resist the inevitable change very concerning. Fonterra, New Zealand's largest company, the sixth largest dairy company in the world, is like its competitors, surreptitiously investing in the development of all forms of vegan food, such as precision fermentation, no doubt in an attempt to maintain their controls in the market, wherever it may go. The obvious disregard for our nation's health, the threat of climate change, and by those with wealth and power, beggars my belief. We must accept that just as lambs and cows can convert plants into good proteins, so can humans. The proliferation of the ownership of pets does concern me. Having spent many years selectively breeding various species to create a more profitable animal, I now recognize that the dominion over these animals was a reflection of the disregard I held for them. They became mere chattels. There are approximately 2 million dogs and cats registered as companion animals in New Zealand. These animals are all well fed, consuming an average of 200 kilos of meat equivalent per year. This amounts to 400,000 tons of meat that could have been fed to hungry children, or preferably, the land so taken up with this meat production could have grown a surplus of healthy vegetables for the malnourished. Furthermore, in New Zealand, the survival burden of the native fauna, the many ground nesting birds and lizards are tragically easy prey for dogs and cats. And that situation was caused because there had been no land-based predators before human invasion. When I converted to veganism, I was driven by my desire to become healthier. Once that was achieved, I explored the other positive effects of veganism. As I wrote in my book, Plant Paradigm, I came to see that there are three prime legs supporting veganism. Human health is one and is very persuasive. The other is the ultimate elimination of herding of animals and the inevitable cruelty to them. It is the herding of alien animals that has led to the mass destruction of the natural flora and fauna in New Zealand. And on reflection, I recognise that through economic necessity and disregard for the sentience of the animals in my care, I was cruel to them in so many ways. I, like all my peers, due to our need to keep control of our assets and to maintain blindness to the sentience of our charges, paid little heed to the golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto you. We knew that the animals we were treating with barbaric cruelty were incapable of doing the same to us. I ultimately rewrote the rule for me to read, do unto others as only you would have done to your children. In my time, I have whipped and kicked animals to get them to submit to my will. I have also killed every manageable farmed animal or caused them to be killed for the table or for income. In return, I have been kicked, bitten, bunted, scratched, and pecked by sentient animals in their efforts to defy me. I now recognize that any insensitive action against a sentient being is an act of inexcusable cruelty. Such behavior is not instinctive, it is learned and exemplified by financial necessity and with time becomes normal. It is only by looking back at my past life that I can see this. Present-day farmers with assets and income to preserve and the need to maintain control over their livestock will continue to see this contact as normal, natural, and necessary. Slavery, male dominance, and carnism all share the same philosophical justification of being regarded as normal, natural, and necessary. But as time passes, each of these practices is coming to be seen for what they are, an absurd justification for control over those we want to dominate. The reality is that we were never designed to kill and eat animals. We have no claws, our teeth and guts are designed for eating and digesting plants. Humans only came into making meat a significant part of our diet around 10,000 years ago. That is less than 1% of the time humans have been managing fire and developing their intellect. The herding of animals and developing of efficient methods of killing them is a very recently learned behavior passed down from generation to generation. And the song from South Pacific comes to mind, "You've got to be carefully taught." It applies to many memes we are subjected to. If we survive the present vicissitudes, humans will look back at herding and eating animals as a brief and mistaken period in our history. As Thoreau wrote, I have no doubt that it is part of the destiny of the human race in its gradual improvement to leave off eating animals, as surely as the savage tribes have left off eating each other when they came into contact with the more civilized. The third prime leg that supports the vegan table is the environment. Destructive de-wilding has been carried out since herding and farming domesticated animals first started. We're now living at a time when the damage to the environment is growing at an exponential rate. Global warming is acknowledged as a very real and huge problem. But the real cause of this is not the burning of fossil fuels. It is a massive adherence to meat and milk production and consumption with the concurrent de-wilding of forests and wetlands. Now is the time to acknowledge that the herding and eating of terrestrial animals, fish, and fowl must cease. I'm very grateful to all the mentors who have guided me to the path I am on. And I'm grateful to Sailesh Rao for opening my eyes to the million vegan grandmothers and to be able to speak at this VCOP19 gathering. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very inspiring inspiring talk. Very difficult to hear, but some of it, but I totally understand. And we would just be honored if you would take some questions. You ready to take some questions?
Happy to do that. Happy to do that.
We can't hear him though. Okay. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions from the audience here or any? Okay, good. The question is, from Deb Thompson, we should stop breeding all animals. It's just another way of forcing them to comply to our system of human domination and hierarchy. Millions of dogs and cats, so-called pets in shelters, are killed every year. So it's a comment by Deb Thompson.
Sorry, what is the question?
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah. How did he come to become a vegan?
Yeah, could you maybe repeat again if you did say it, or if you did, how you came upon, I mean, that crucial moment of when you knew you were going to go vegan?
I had suffered a pulmonary embolism, and I recovered from that adequately. And then 20 years later, I had a second one, and I was put on warfarin for life. And in those days, I was killing rats and predators with the same product, warfarin. So I decided that warfarin was not for me, and I was determined to give it up. And absolutely coincidentally, with the day I decided to give it up, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn was being interviewed on the radio. And I heard his interview, and by the end of the interview, we cleaned the house out of everything that was animal, and I went vegan.
Wow.
And since then, I've been
That is so awesome.
Thank you, James.
So,
Can I ask a question?
As a former cattle rancher myself, and my husband, being a multi-generational cattle rancher, I know firsthand, what it's like to kill animals and love them, kill animals and like them. And I heard you say, you've killed just about every imaginable species. And I know for myself, I'm going to get to the question, but I know for myself, once I went vegan on a cattle ranch, the very animals I used to eat, now that they were in my care, the relationship I had towards farm animals was much more heightened than my domesticated cats and dogs. It's like I had a heightened sense of, oh my God, I used to eat the leg, of the chicken, and I was trying to help it walk. Or, oh my God, I'm petting, the cow, and I must have eaten their ribs. I had this heightened awareness. Can you explain maybe any experiences you might have had, similar to that? And I know I can't be unique.
not directly. I was not a good animal lover. I wasn't. My wife Barbie was much better at loving the animals than I did. I treated them with a lot of disrespect. But the sad thing is that I now regard every animal, every piece of livestock, as an intrusion on the environment. And so I have total distaste for any live animal now. They should be. I don't know what we're going to do with them, but they shouldn't be running around destroying the bush and the wetlands. Sorry, don't answer the question well.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Okay.
Allison would like to know, can you mention any signs of change in New Zealand towards a vegan way of life?
Can you mention any signs in New Zealand about regarding a vegan change of life?
It's desperately slow, but it is gradually coming. But it's I'm frequently criticized because they say I'm way out there and I shouldn't be forcing veganism on people. But someone's got to be out there. I'm sure there'll be plenty that'll treat people more gently. I don't treat people very gently that aren't vegan.
All right.
Rebecca wants to know, did he have challenges with other farmers?
Yeah, Rebecca Allen would like to know if you had challenges with other farmers or ranchers in the community that might have known you prior.
Nothing overt.
Not that
Friendships
you've
have
heard. I get it.
remained.
What's that?
Friendships have remained, but I
Yeah,
don't talk
friendships
about.
have remained good. You know, people ask us that too, and it's so interesting. People think that just because you go vegan as a cattle rancher, that all your cattle ranchers are going to not like you anymore, and that hadn't been our experience either. You know, it's so interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. And here's a question from the chat. This one right here does have a comment and then a question.
Okay, so from Allison Hamji, to James, I want to converse with animal industry workers and help them transition to vegan work, but I'm afraid of physical violence. Could you give me some advice?
Oh, I wouldn't. I think we've got to approach it from the other side, and we've all got to go vegan, and then the people that work with the livestock won't have a job with livestock. I mean, we've got to force it from the bottom up. I think we've got to just stop buying meat and milk and fish and the eggs and chicken.
Stop buying meat, milk, fish, eggs.
Yeah, and if we all did that, the industries would collapse.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? You got one there, Becky?
Yes, the audience. I mean, from the online.
Okay, from online. Australia has been ranked the worst when it comes to treatment of farm animals. Is New Zealand close, and is region agriculture being used to dupe public there as well by the industry?
As I was preparing to give this presentation, I reviewed, and I'm not going to go over them, the way I've treated animals in my life, and it's quite hideous. The amount of pain and destruction that I've caused over my life. And I think if you go out onto the farms today, you'll find the same disregard for the sentience of the animals. They're a very good, Barbie was a very good farmer, treated them very well. But nonetheless, through their lives, and I won't go into the descriptions of it, every animal was treated with disdain at different times.
Thank you. So glad for your experience. Do you have a question? Come on.
Hi, I went to New Zealand about 10 years ago, and it was hard for me to find vegan pies or even vegetarian pies. Have they come, have they come a long way since then? I hope.
I've never found a vegan pie I've liked, because they're all suspect. So I don't eat pies.
Suspect.
It's a vegetarian.
Yeah, probably.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a few questions coming through.
Any other questions? You have one, Sailesh?
I'd like to ask a question. Oh.
I can hear you.
I have a question, sort of. Hi, everybody. I don't know if you can see me.
I can see you.
I was in New Zealand a number of years ago and went to Hobbiton, and it's a beautiful place. It's nestled in this area where they have all these sheep and thousands of them. And I was vegan at the time, and I was so sad because I know what happens to them, and they were running free and they were nursing. And then I said, how long do those sheep live? And they said, oh, about a year. And I was like, oh, that's terrible. And of course I said it really loud to everybody that was on the bus. And so it was very sad. And they were telling me, oh, the cheese tastes so good here because the cows just, eat grass. So I'm thinking, telling people to just not eat animals and to just not eat that, I don't think that really works, because you have to give them a replacement. And most people have absolutely no idea how to eat plant-based. It just totally baffles them. And we know because we're in the middle of it. But I've been working with food for a number of years now, and I've talked to thousands of people, and I've just observed a lot, and I know that the horrors originally pushed me away from eating and using and wearing animals. It was a great awakening, like Renee was talking about that. And I came across Renee like 3 months after I went vegan, and I was just totally floored. She said, the vegan journal of a rancher's wife, what? And it was so incredible. And I just love Renee and Tommy so much. And we've seen him many times. So, I'm thinking like if we just go in and tell people like, stop doing this, we can give them reason to stop it. And a lot of people get to the point and they go, well, what am I supposed to do now? So that's why meetings like this and, all the food shows and really showing people and saying, how wonderful it is. And as far as not eating a vegan pie, you like, it's probably the way that it's made. And it's probably just wasn't made by a good cook, maybe. I don't know.
But it's still processed.
Somebody that you know.
It's still it's not plant-based whole food, is it? It's processed. It's over-processed.
Not
That's my point.
necessarily. Not necessarily. There's like, I don't know, there are some great vegan meats coming out now. Beyond Meat just made their
Yes.
burgers healthier, and they even got the seal of approval, from those government or not I'm not too happy with our government right now, but it's all gonna get weird.
I agree with what you're saying, and
Yeah.
that's why I quoted that headline from The Economist, because every time I see the farmers in New Zealand getting excited because the price of milk powder has gone up or the price of meat's gone up, I say bravo. The further it goes up, the more easily the fake meat and milk are going to get into the marketplace.
Oh,
and I
and
think
they're always plant-based. Never call it fake, because you don't want to turn people off.
what
I just say plant meat, and people sometimes look at me funny, but I said plant cheese.
meat. Yeah,
People
well, all
like,
right.
well, the big thing was like vegan cheese isn't real cheese. And my answer to that is I tell people, look, cheese and butter, they're basically flavored fat, right? And they agree with that. So we get the fat from plants instead of animals, and it's wonderful. I'm thrilled. And that pretty much, turns people around to it. But there's that belief that it's fake, is really important, because that's actually perpetuated by the meat industry. And I think it was mentioned earlier today or yesterday how the meat industry was directly responsible for, being dismissive of plant-based meats. So thank you very much. Sorry to take up so much time.
It's very good.
Thank you, Nancy. So good to see you. A lively conversation there. Thank you. All right, next up is a question by Deepak, and he wants to know if you follow a whole food, plant-based life, and if you do, what's your favorite food, or just tell us about, your lifestyle.
Well, when we went vegan, when I went vegan, and anyone that knows my wife Barbie would understand this. She's a lovely woman, and she said, I'll go with you, but there were two questions. Who's going to do the cooking? And I said, I'll do all the cooking. And she said, can we drink? And I said, as long as it's vegan, yes. And so ever since then, I've cooked all the meals, or virtually all the meals, and she's a happy vegan, but she breaks the rules occasionally when we go out.
Thank you.
But
And did Tammy have a question? No? All right. Any other questions out here in the audience?
There's a lot of questions.
Anybody else want to?
One more quick comment.
Sailesh has a question. Dr. Rao.
Sorry.
What? All right.
Go ahead, Tammy. Go ahead,
Dr.
Tammy.
Rao.
Thanks, James. It's really good seeing you again. And, the thing that strikes me, after watching the documentary Milked many years ago that we screened for the Convergence, I really had a whole different view of New Zealand and how a lot of our whey protein comes from there. And they really promote, the free range cattle that run there. But, the water is completely contaminated. And like you said, the wildlife has nowhere to live anymore. It's not a very big country. But the one thing that strikes me the deepest with you, James, is your incredible honesty. And, thank you for that, because, you're just saying it how it's been for you, and you're incredibly honest and saying that you had that big of a disconnect with the animals. And then I see how much even talking about that moves you to tears sometimes. And So thank you so much for your deep honesty and your book and sharing your message. And we will be tuning back in with you at the end of 2026 and see how much New Zealand is vegan.
Yes,
Thank
please
you.
do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
So my question, James, is
Oh, hello.
when you went vegan and your wife went vegan with you, what happened to all the animals that you had in the farm? And how did you
Oh,
transition out of that?
we had sold the farm by then.
You had sold
We had
everyone?
we sold we had gone we'd finished farming before I went vegan. We sold the farm. Did you hear that?
So he sold the farm and all before he went vegan. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. And what is the name of your book? Yes. And how can we get a hold of you?
The book is called Plant Paradigm.
Plant
Yeah, we've got a copy.
Paradigm.
Yeah, yep. And it's but as far as I know, it's only available in New Zealand. And is yeah, yeah.
If we want to get a hold of you, is there a website or something?
Oh, yeah, there's the book. Can you see the book?
Oh, Plant Paradigm. He's showing us the picture. Great.
Yes, yes. Shall I give you my email address?
What?
Shall I give you my email address?
Sure, if you don't mind, we'd appreciate that.
It's James at TPAZ, TIPAZ.NZ.
Can you put that in the chat, maybe? PABZ?
I put it in the chat.
Okay, somebody's
Thank
put it
you.
in the chat. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. If there's not any other questions, I guess, do you have a question? Yeah. Oh, Rebecca has another question. Come on down.
Thank you so much, James, for this. I want to look at the interview. Didn't you interview with Tammy?
Yes. I don't
Yes.
know how well it went.
Yes, I mean, I haven't gotten to see it yet, but I'm looking forward to listening to that and learning more. And I wanted to know, what would you like to envision, say, over the next few months? Is there something that you're kind of aspiring to or would like to see from us? I know you've got lots going on already. You've got your book, but I wonder if there's something else that you're looking for. We're so glad you came to this VCOP.
I'm so glad I came too. I'm getting to be an old man, and I've got my finger in a lot of other pies as well. I keep working on this one though, and promoting it where I can. But over the next few months, I can't envisage any great shift, but I would look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us here on Climate Healers. Y'all get the book, Plant Paradigm. I know I'm going to. Yeah, y'all put your hands together for James. Awesome job. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
All right, we ready to keep moving?
We have 3 minutes, so we'll see if there's any other comments from the audience.
Any other comments from the audience? It's good to see Lisa Barca here with us. Hi, Lisa. Good to see you. Yeah, just again, one more time, just so you all know, those of you that may be just joining, I'm Renee King-Sonnen, the founder and executive director of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. And we are the first documented beef cattle ranch in the whole wide world. Well, maybe there might be one I'm talking to that might have, we're in touch. It's kind of interesting. There might be one in, is it Austria? Yeah, Australia that may be neck and neck with us that I never. Austria, yeah. So anyway, I'll be telling you more about that because if so, I'm going to be telling their story. I'll be doing it anyway. But my tagline is always that we're the first documented beef cattle ranch in the world to go vegan and live to tell about it. And so anyway, we're glad y'all are here, and I'm just eating radio time right now because we have a few minutes.
Right. And I wonder if he ever met Howard Lyman.
Oh, James?
Uh-huh.
I don't know. He's not on here anymore.
But he may come back on.
James, have you? Oh, there he is. Have you ever met Howard Lyman?
No.
Do you know him?
No. Where is he from?
Well, he lives in, I think, Montana right now, I believe. He is, if you look up the Mad Cowboy, he is, the rancher. He had a factory farm, and he's the rancher that, oh my gosh, he was on Oprah Winfrey.
Really?
There was all kind of issues about mad cow disease. He got sued along with Oprah Winfrey. They won, and he went vegan, sold his whole operation out. He went vegan because of his health. Yeah. But anyway, a great person to get to know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you, James. It's now time to keep rolling. So up next, we have